So today we're talking about Substance in Sinespace, and Substance is a fantastic software suite produced by a company called Allegorithmic. I have today with me Vincent Gault, the technical artist at Allegorithmic, who will be doing a demo. We'll be texturing and painting an object as we go, and then we'll be bringing it into Sinespace. I myself am the CEO of Sinespace Entertainment, the company that makes Sinespace, and for those who are coming into virtual worlds to begin with, Sinespace is a user-generated virtual world, so basically you can build content however you like using the latest and greatest tools, including the Substance suite, and then bring them directly into a sort of giant user-generated MMO environment. So, moving on, before we get started on how we actually texture something, this is something I textured myself a little bit earlier today. We are going to go over a little bit on lighting. Now, I covered lighting at the very beginning of our sessions when I started this Masterclass series, but there is a bit more to cover here, and I want to do a little bit of a refresher on how PBR lighting works, because it is fundamental to how the Substance suite works and how everything else interacts with sort of modern lighting engines. So something you may notice if you look at this this textured model that I made earlier is actually that there is some degree of parameters on how the object actually interacts with the environment. So we've actually got some metal on this sash, and when you actually see this in screenshot, you'll see that actually the metal is reflecting from the environment it's around. So this is because it's running under PBR lighting. Now PBR lighting stands for physically based rendering. Physically based rendering is a improved lighting model that most games and modern rendering environments are moving towards. It came originally from the movie industry, but it's sort of become fast enough that we can actually run it on consumer hardware. Now the reason you want to do this and use physically based lighting is that lighting is more accurate across a wide range of conditions. Particularly if you're coming from older virtual worlds where PBR lighting isn't available, this is a bit of a step up. You need to learn a few things. It's mostly pretty simple, but the basics is that lighting baked into objects in older renderers, particularly used by older virtual worlds, all the lighting is baked into the texture. So for instance, you've got one texture that's got color and lighting information baked in together. That might have occlusion and shadows and things painted into it. And the moment the object moves or changes environment, so you take it from a dark environment to a light environment to all sorts of different places, the lighting conditions don't update with it. That is to say that it looks a little bit out of place. The great thing about physically based rendering is that it's rendering all at real time. So when you take an object from one environment to another environment, the lighting conditions react normally, and we get all the goodness on how it should work. Sorry. Sorry, someone's giving me a phone call all of a sudden. I think it might have been over the stream earlier. Okay, so PBR lighting, all the lighting is baked into the environment, and is not baked into the textures, and we actually have a diffuse array of textures which are used in producing the PBR environment. The great thing here is that when you take the object around, so in virtual worlds you do not know exactly where an object is going to end up. Particularly on things like avatar clothing, you don't know where the user is going to visit, and you want the clothing to look good across a wide range of lighting conditions. This is also easier to work with. The tools to work with PBR lighting are far easier than the older tools. So the older way, you might actually paint the object in Photoshop. So you'll actually build the object, you'll UV map it, you'll hand paint it. You might be using a tool like 3D Coat as well to sort of paint those things on, but it's still a pain. You're still actually sort of hand painting a lot of how the shadowing and lighting works. PBR, it's much easier to go with. You actually only really need to paint off the color and what we call a metalness or smoothness map. There's another way of doing that with specular maps as well. There is some fantastic PBR lighting resources around the place as well. If you search for, I think it's PBR Encyclopedia, there is actually a great ground-up guide on exactly how PBR materials should work. Now, getting on to exactly how PBR works, this is just a really quick overview on how it works. There's two primary components. There is a smoothness component, and that actually, if we get into smoothness, determines how lighting actually is reflected off the object, and there's a metalness component, which actually determines how much the light is absorbed by the material. So, to get on to smoothness, that's the most important one to begin with. When you look at an object, what you're seeing is the photons bounced off that object. So those photons will be coming from an emitter. It might be the sun, it might be a light in your vicinity, but what's happening is that there is parallel rays coming off that object and bouncing to your eyes. And smooth object, you get quite a clear picture of how it is actually looking because the rays come in parallel. That is to say, when you get one photon from an object, a neighbouring area of the object, you're getting the same reflected area, and it's coming in nice and crisp. Rough objects, on the other hand, they sort of throw light all over the place. So when the parallel rays come in off the illuminating object, what happens is they just bounce all over the place, and you have no real sense of exactly the fine details because you're not getting the full picture. It's getting confused with other bits of light bouncing off other areas that come in through the same way. So you get a much more diffuse and smooth look. And to illustrate that, I've just got an image that's come from the Unity manual here, which has got the roughness and smoothness maps. And what you can see here is a rough object. It's quite diffuse. You don't sort of have a clear indication. You've got some rough indications of exactly how the object looks, but you don't have the very precise reflections coming off the ambient environment because they're not coming in parallel. A very smooth object, on the other hand, will look like a mirror. Now, mirrors look smooth because they're actually made through pouring liquids, and liquids sort of fill all the gaps very, very smoothly. On the other hand, things that are machined and whatnot tend to be really, really rough by comparison. So, the other component is one called metalness. Now, metalness is to do with energy conservation. Light is either absorbed or reflected by a material. It will never be both. And in that respect, some objects will sort of absorb the light. It might bounce around a little bit underneath and come back out, and that's called subsurface scattering, but often it doesn't. Or it will be reflected. Metals and non-metals have very distinct categories of how they conserve energy here. Metals don't absorb light in most cases. So what happens is all the light tends to get bounced back. Non-metals do tend to absorb the light, and there's another very distinct thing between them. But objects tend to be either metal or not metal. There's very little in the middle. Cases where you see the middle tend to be things like rusted objects or dusty objects. In those cases, you're getting a partially occluded thing by the small layer over the top, and what you're seeing is an average result over the area. But at the very fundamental level, they are being absorbed or not absorbed in the real world, but in this case, we can use those middle values for a kind of approximation. So again, what we can see here is we can see low metalness versus high metalness. High metalness, there's quite a bit of reflection here, and the reflection, as you can see, is quite distinct because the metals are not absorbing the light. On the other hand, plastics and things, non-metals, they tend to just absorb the light and you don't get much back from them. It's much more, it's much duller by comparison, because actually what you're seeing here is you're seeing the light reflected back. So on those objects, you're not seeing the reflections at all. They're just getting absorbed by the object. Now, why do we do this? The old school method I've got here on the left, and hopefully the image is coming through clear enough that you can sort of see the difference. This is rendered using a bump, specular, and diffuse rendering model. So you've got all the three primary components of an old renderer there, whereas on the right-hand side we have the PBR rendered version, and immediately things bounce out. Like, for instance, we've actually got the ability to describe reflectivity. So the metal highlights on this sheet here, they're actually bright and sparkly and they look good. On the other hand, you don't see those on the older models. There's subtle improvements across the whole thing, but that's sort of a really distinct, clear example. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to Vincent, who's going to be giving us a demo today on using the Substance Suite with the model we provided. We'll come to the end of this because we've actually got a competition that we're going to be launching right after this on how to, on producing the best results from the same model. But to begin with, I'm just going to jump straight to Vincent, who can show us the workflow of actually texturing a model in Substance Painter. And immediately, if you are a clothing designer or another object designer from all the virtual worlds, you should immediately jump out and go, wow, this is so much faster to work with. So it's a fantastic demo, and thank you, Vincent, very much for coming on today. And I will just share your screen now.
Hey guys, so thanks for inviting me first. I'm just going to wait for my screen to be shared. Shouldn't be long, but I want to make sure you guys have it. No, it's already shared. Let's wait because I don't have the YouTube in the.
Yeah.
Adam, do I have my screen shared right now?
We're probably just waiting for this to come through.
Yeah, just want to make sure
yes,
not to make the blue screen twice.
Good to go.
good to go. Okay, so this is me. Okay, so thanks for having me. So first of all, a small introduction about myself. So my name is Vincent Gault. I'm a community manager and technical artist at Allegorithmic. Allegorithmic is a French company. That, as you can hear my French accent, you are going to eat this for 1 hour, so I hope you can live with that. It's a French company, and we are specialized in 3D texturing. So what we do is really texturing 3D worlds. It can be for different markets. For example, in video games, we are the leaders for texturing with 95% of the market share for AAA games. Maybe some of you guys know this game, Uncharted 4, I guess. But we're also in movies, in product design, like this one with Hyundai, for example. And we're also in different stuff like architecture, where we are growing fast. But today we are going to focus more on, let's say it's not exactly video game, but it's real time, let's say real time rendering. And why actually 3D texturing? Why do we focus on that? Because let's say before there wasn't any focus. There was tools like Photoshop, for example, which are extremely good image compositing tools, but they are not specifically dedicated to. Sorry, I'm just going to close the image because I see myself twice. So yes, they are not really dedicated to 3D texturing. So it means like it's as if you wanted to cut a tree with this kind of knife. What you need is really dedicated tools, which really are going to make the tool properly because they are thought to make this job. So we had to rethink a bit the way to rethink the paint bucket and the brush, because basically you need 4 things to paint or to do art in general. You need the paint bucket, you need the brush, you need a support, which is your 3D model, and you need, of course, your talent, but we don't sell this. You have to have it. So for us, we have 2 main components to do that, which are Substance Designer, which is really where you create materials. We are not going to see it today. And we have the brush, which is a Substance Painter, where you apply the materials. Of course, you can create materials into Substance Painter, and you can also texture an object within Substance Designer. But let's say they are more dedicated for each specific cases. And we also have something called Substance Source, which are already made, ready to use materials, and they are really pro quality. So that's another thing we're going to see a bit, because now it's integrated directly within Substance Painter as well. So as you know, I won't be too long with that, but to texture, what is particular when you texture a 3D object is that you have to paint multiple textures at the same time. And generally the previous workflow where generally you do the diffuse map or the base color map, and from this base color you try to make a specular map, and maybe you have a normal, but it's kind of tedious. If you were using like let's say Photoshop, sometimes you had like hundreds of layers just because you have to duplicate everything, and when you make a change in one place, it's really difficult to apply it. So that's one of the things we wanted to change. And that's what we created, what we called Substance. And Substances, actually, it's a file format that contains all the texture information that you need to display a material on the screen. So here, for example, you see you have the specularity, the color, you have everything. And at the end, what is important is that it gives you the material. And another cool point of the Substance is that you can create parameters for this, which means that, for example, with this brick wall, you have one brick wall, but you have lots of parameters. So you can change the color, you can change the size of the tiling, does it leaks, etc. So with this parameter, it means that once you have done the work once, you can reuse it a lot. And so that's extremely powerful, as you can imagine. And finally, one other good point is that the Substance file format is supported within different tools that you may already use, like Unity, Unreal, Houdini, Maya, 3ds Max, Modo, etc. And we're adding more progressively. So that's a good thing. So I think I talked too much. So today, just forget the Substance Designer. I'm just going to show you for 2 seconds so you understand. And we are going really to focus on Substance Painter. Finally, we have a really big community. We have hundreds of thousands of users. So you can join us Twitch, not that much right now, but we're on Discord, Facebook, Google+, Pinterest, Twitter, of course. So don't hesitate to join the community, especially Discord, where there is a lot of good discussion. I guess if you have questions, you can go there. And we also have the forum, so that's a good starting point. So enough with sliders. Let's talk a bit more about, again, just to show you a Substance Designer, because it will explain a bit what was saying Adam. So for example, here I have a material, and you see it's a cube. I can rotate the environment. And here it's a nodal stuff where I create the environment. So just to show you a bit what it displays, it's just the maps that you need to create the material. So you have the base color, the normal map, the roughness, and the metallic. And if you look here, for example, we see, maybe I'm gonna use a sphere so we see it better. So we have a nice metal sphere, but I can change that and say, for example, I don't want, if we play with the roughness, let me find it, the roughness value, that's where you see that, let's rotate this a bit. When we conserve the energy, you can change, is it bit rough or is it really smooth until being like a mirror? It's exactly the same material, it's still metal, because I define it here, it's defined below. But that's really where you define the material. So you have some parameters like, let me check this one. Map, I don't need it. Custom, okay, so let's say I take an aluminum, you will have these settings. You can take what we call a dielectric material, which is actually a non-metallic one. So that's where Substance Designer, you would create your materials, and you can put parameters, etc. But for today, it's a bit more advanced, so we're not going to focus on that. What we're going to look at is what we call Substance Painter, which is this tool. And we are going to texture one of the models provided by Sinespace. But for now, what I'm going to show you is the interface. So this is Matt, this character, which comes directly within the software. If you want, you can go here, File, Open Samples, and you will find it. And let's do a quick tour of the interface. Just give me 2 seconds. I made a list, and I don't want to forget anything. So let me find the list. Presentation. Okay. It won't be long. Okay, so let's see the interface a bit. So as you see, it's a 3D painting application. So the main part is, of course, the 3D viewport that you have here. To navigate in it, it's really easy. You just hold Alt, and if you do left click, you will rotate around the object. Middle click, you will pan, and right click, you will zoom. You can do also the middle click, middle mouse wheel to rotate. So that's nothing fancy here. The cool thing is that you can also change the environment really easily by going to the viewer settings, and you can say, you know what, I want, first I want to see the environment maybe, and I want to use like this environment. I don't want it to be blurry like that. And you can rotate also the environment, so you see the lighting in real time. And that's one of the really good points with physically based rendering, is that whatever the lighting condition, if your object is well made, it will work because it's physically correct. So I mean, here you see that it's plausible. If I changed for example, for something more like in space, in the sky, for example, like this, you see that it directly works. So that's one of the good points. So now, You have also the shelf here, which actually contain all the tools that you will need to paint and texture your objects. So you have some alphas that you will use with the branch, some branch map, procedurals, which I will speak a bit later, textures, etc., etc., the brushes, etc. Then you have the layers. If you use Photoshop, you may be used to that. We are going to focus on this just after. You have the properties here, this part, sorry, the properties panel, which actually will give you more information, all the settings depending on what is selected on the scene. So if I select a layer or a fill layer, for example, you will have different information. I explain the difference just after. And finally, you have what we call the texture set list. I'm going to move it a bit so we see it better, which are actually the different materials applied to your model. So here there is 3 materials. For example, you can show solo. So we have the head, the body, and the base. And if you want to see everything at the same time, you just do all. And coming with this, you have what we call the texture set settings, which actually, this is where you will define the size of the texture. So one of the points that makes Substance Painter really successful is that it's really non-destructive, which means that the texture size while you're working is not that important. To show you an example, I'm going to go in 512 really fastly and take something like the dirt. So as it's a 512, I'm going to choose another color because if I paint white on white, it won't work that much. But am I okay? I'm going to go back on the head. Sorry. Okay, so you see that here I paint, but the resolution is really good. It's super high, so of course I have some resolution. But what if, let's say, I started with 512? Maybe it's already good. So let's do 256. So you see, like it's blurry because you don't have enough resolution on your image. If I do this way, you see here I split my screen in 2 parts. So you see in the texture it's quite small. So it's not beautiful. So if you would have done that in another software, you would be a bit annoyed because it means that if you upscale, you won't have this definition. But it's not the case with our software. Right now I can go back in 248. So remember I painted in 256 and I go in 248 and you see that the resolution is here. Why? Because we don't just upscale the textures. What we do is we repaint your object at the proper resolution. What we store in a Substance Painter file, it's the paint strokes. So it means that whatever you can change the resolution afterwards, it won't be a problem. So that's an extremely good point when you work. So that's one of the point that made the success of Substance Painter. Another point is that you actually paint all the maps that you need at the same time. So the base color, the metallic, the roughness, the normal, and height in that case is just all in one layer, which means that, for example, if I go in my shelf and take, let's say, Brace Pure like this one, I can grab it. I'm going to put it below. And you see that it provides all the map that you need to generate gold, for example. If I do C, I can switch through the maps like that. So you see it's written at the top left. You have the height, the normal, the base color, the metallic. As you can see, it's really interesting. Here you see that on the gold, of course, is metallic, and the paint that I put above is black because it's not metallic, etc. And I switch back to M to get back in material. Finally, I'm going to show you another stuff, which is actually a point I just showed you, but I don't know if you noticed. There is 2 kinds of layers in Substance Painter. The first one is a paint layer, which is here. You just do this. And a paint layer, it's easy to understand. You just paint on your object. You have some tools here that you can use. So you have the painter, you have the eraser, which erase, of course. No. You have a projection tool that you can use to project. We won't focus too much on this. You have different objects. You have a smudge tool that allows you to move a bit like that your stuff to make some painting effect. It can be cool. You have a stamp tool. It's really like in a Photoshop for this one, and so on. You can use symmetry as well, and all the tools are here. So this is the painting layers, so they are really powerful. But we also have another kind of tools, which is the fill layers, and they are extremely powerful as well. And what is a fill layer? It's something that will fill the full surface of your object. So for example, here I'm going to, so it fills with material that we have here. So I'm going to take like this one, for example, and you see that in one click, it just put in the whole surface of this. So that's extremely powerful. And another thing that you can retain is like in Photoshop, for example, you can put some masks in your object. So let's say, for example, that you have, let's use a plastic like that. And you want to put some rust on that. You can add what we call a mask, for example, to say, okay, I don't want rust anywhere. And what you want is to add rust just on the edges, for example. And this is something that you can do really easily. You don't have to just take a paint brush and pass through the edges like that. It would be really painful. What we do in that case is we go in the texture set settings, and you see here that we have a bunch of maps that are pre-baked. Actually, on this on maps, they are pre-baked by default, but it's what we call information maps. It's called also additional maps. And what it does, it gives information to Substance Painter to drive some filters or generators. So for example, if I go in the smart mask that we have here, you see that you have this kind of mask, and these masks are driven really by these maps. So if I drag and drop, let's say this one, and I put it here, you see that it uses the shape, the information to recognize the shape and put the rust just in the edges and a bit in the cavities where there is ambient occlusion. So that this is an extremely easy way to texture. So now let's see, we're going to focus a bit more about the model provided by Sinespace. So the model was Vlad, and I'm going to show you it first. So what I received actually is a model like this one, composed of many different resources, because by default the FBX in Sinespace has to be separated by elements, because sometimes you want to mix a different shirt with different shoes, etc. You want to be able to change every part. But for Substance Painter, sometimes you want to texture everything at the same time to have a good vision. So it's really up to you. So personally, what I did, I opened Blender. I don't know if you know Blender. It's a 3D application which is free and extremely powerful to handle 3D objects. So I just did imported all the parts. So I did new import FBX. I went through the Vlad resources here, and I took, for example, let's say I won't start with the glasses because it's small. I started with the jacket. I imported it. So I won't do it for each part because I already did it. So, sorry. So if I do file import once again, like this, I go here. Again, you see that I already prepared a Vlad with all the elements, and when I have all the elements like that, I just selected everything. I went to File, Export, and I exported it. I said selected object to make sure that everything is exported in one object. The most important thing is to make sure that any element has different materials. That's the point. Except this, because every material, affected material will result in a texture set within Substance Painter. So let's go back to it for now, and I'm going to create a new project like this. So I'm discarding this. So the first thing when you create a new project is you don't have to select a template because Sinespace is using the default one, but you have to select a mesh, of course. So I'm going to do it now, and I'm going to take my Vlad, who is here. Open. You can choose the document resolution, but as I showed you, that's not that important because you can change it later on. Just keep in mind that the higher the resolution, the more GPU intensive it will be. Substance Painter is really GPU intensive, so as you can change the resolution whenever you want, don't go too high. It's just useless to work. And I can import maps as well, but I will do it after. So let's do this. So I have my Vlad, who is completely blank, and you see that you have different parts here. They are separated this way: glass, gloves, hair, etc. So the point is, as I told you, the first thing you have to do when you import a model is to generate some information. Here I don't have a high-res model, but I do have some information. Like here, I have some maps like the albedo. I have the normal map here, and the metallic map. So that's something that I want to import directly. So to import maps, that's really easy. You just grab them, control. I will just take one of them. So I have the normal, the metallic, and the one albedo. So you just drag and drop them here. And it will ask you, okay, what are these kind of maps? So I'm selecting everything, and I say, okay, these textures are just textures. It's not an environment. Color loot, we forget for now. And alpha, it's really a grayscale map. So far they are textures, and I want to import it in this project. You have three choices here. You can just import it for the session, so which means it will be lost once Substance Painter is closed. You can import it within the project. That's what I'm going to do. Or within the shelf, which means that they are going to be within the shelf at any time. So let's do here, and I import. And you see for the glasses, I have these three maps. So this, and this. So you see here the metallic. So we can we guess that the edges of the glasses are going to be metallic, but not the rest. So what you do with this, what we're interested first is to take the glasses here and to put it in the select normal here. And with this one, what are we going to do? So first I'm going to zoom a bit on this, sorry, here. I'm going to create a fill layer first, like this. And you see that when I create a fill layer, I have some information about the material. So I have the material, the color, the metallic, the roughness, the normal, etc. So with this, I can imagine changing the color for everything like that. And you see that it changed real time here. But in that case, I already have a map here that is provided. So what I'm going to do is to just drag and drop the map here. And you see that directly it will color the glasses. And you see also that the normal that we put here are reflected here directly. And we have the same for the metal. So I'm going to take this here, the metallic, and I'm going to put it in the metallic slot here. And now you see that the border reflects like metal. So this is something that you have to do for any part. And another thing that you want to do generally is to provide some more information about the model. So to do this, what you are going to do is to go to bake textures. And here we are going to bake some information textures. So we already have a normal map, so I don't need another one. I need a world space normal map. An ID map is some color information. Generally, they could be, you could have created them within the vertex color of your mesh, but in that case, it's not the case. Ambient occlusion, we may want this. Curvature, position, and thickness. That's fine. We're going to bake all of this. And I'm going to say, as I don't have a high-res mesh for this, that I'm going to use the low poly mesh as a high poly. And I just bake a glasses texture, and I think I was in 124. It's extremely fast. We have really fast baker and really efficient ones. So I recommend to use them. You see, it takes like 5 seconds maybe. And just checking, I was in 512. I'm going to go in 124 because that's what is driving the filters. So I want to put a good resolution for this. So let's do it again. It will take a bit more, maybe 5 seconds more. Okay, so with this, I have this done, so I'm really happy with that. I'm going to do the same for another object, like let's say I'm going to take a bigger one so we can see, like this one, because it will be more relevant. So once again, I'm going to go to this part, I'm going to the resource, to the jacket, and I'm going to import some of them, like the metallic, I already have the occlusion, so let's take it. The normal map, and maybe I'm going to take a color here. The other one, I don't necessarily need them. So once again, I import, select everything. This is textures, and I want to import it in this project. So I say import, they are here. And really fastly, I'm going to drag and drop here. I'm going to create a fill layer, the color. The ambient occlusion, I'm going to put it here. And look at the model. When I do this, you see that it adds a bit of ambient occlusion, which gives some more depth on your model generally. And I need the metallic here, which actually is not that good for this one because it's grayish. So I am going to remove it because I don't want my object to be metallic. This object to be metallic. So I think I'm good with this. Let's see the whole model for now. So I have this. So in order not to waste some more time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a version that I prepared for this model, and we're going to focus on each part. So let's open recent, and I call it blood. So I discard this. Let's wait. And here I have a model which is fully textured. So don't worry, I will focus a bit on how I did that, because if not, it wouldn't be really funny, but at least you can see everything at the same time. So you see that I make like a rugged leather here. I think we're going to focus really on this part because there is many interesting stuff we can do. And so yes, you see also the t-shirt is like, there is some stuff I put actually details, but not in the color. It's put in the roughness. So this part is more shiny than the rest. So I think it was interesting. And finally, I made a jean as well, like that. So I'm just checking at the same time if there is some question. I have the question personally on YouTube. I don't see any. Okay, so let's continue. So I'm going to focus on 3 parts. To show you how we can do. So I'm going to isolate the jacket here, like this one. And let's see, you see that there is tons of shaders, but what we're going to do, we're not going to cheat. We have this nice stuff, but we're going to texture it from scratch. So we do it. So a map, a few minutes ago, I spoke about ID maps, and an ID map is actually a map like this one. Let me check here, like this. So it looks like a really colorful map, and actually it's used to separate the different materials within an object. Here, for example, you see this is a trousers. I cannot move the mouse, but you see that there is the blue, which is the fabric really, and you have another like a bright blue, which seems to be the belt, the metal part of the belt, and you have the orange, sorry, which is obviously the belt. And we have the same stuff for the jacket, and we're going to use it. We have it here. So how to use it? There is a way to isolate each part. So what I like to do, there is a way to create that by creating group. So here I created a group, and within this group, I'm going to create a material, a temporary one. Sorry. Do I have water? Yes, I have. I'm going to drink a bit of water, so I don't lose my voice with you guys. And so I created a fill layer that I'm going to put in pink. Texture set, sorry, I'm reading question. I'm assuming the texture set are separating according to the ID map. No, wrong. It's separated according to the materials. And what is cool is that the ID maps, you can use an ID map on a material, which means that on one texture, you can put one texture set, you can put different materials. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. So I put this red, really ugly material, but it's just for the sake of showing you how to separate. So let's say I want to apply this material, but just on this part, this element here. So there is different ways to do that. What I can do is to create a black mask, so which hide everything by default, and I can paint like this to say, okay, I will just show this part. You see, I'm painting on the mask, which is if I do alt click, you see that I visualize the mask, which is here, but you see it's quite painful. So that's not what we want to do. There is hopefully some tools to select, like this one, the polygon fill. You can type 4 in the numbers, and you see that now you can select like this by fill mode. So you can do, I can do by triangle like that. So, oh my God, that's awesome. I can spend like 2 days doing that. But hopefully you can do also by faces. So it means that you divide by 2, you are 2 times more efficient. It's awesome. But hopefully you have like by element, which is way faster, but this one is not separated, so it's not really visible. But if this element was independent within the mesh, it would have been selected. Here it's not the case, everything is blended, yeah. So I let you imagine. And you have another way, which is really cool. If I do F1 here, you see that you have the 3D view and the 2D view, and you can do selected by UV. So if I do by UV, I can click here and do this, and you see that I am selecting the proper parts. In my case, it would be this part here, except that the t-shirt here, I'm not really satisfied. And there is a more efficient way that we're going to see now. Wow. I'm deleting it. Which are the ID maps. So the ID maps is something that you will prepare, for example, in Blender, where you define some specific colors in the vertex color. And then you can bake them and give an ID map like this one. So if I delete this, delete mask, remove mask, I have add mask with color selection, and it creates me a black mask and a color selection filter, which is here. And when I do pick color, you see that now, based on the ID map, I have the different zones which are defined. And I'm going first to define this one, and you see now how easy is it to select this part. And as I am very lazy, I'm going to select the group and do Control D. First, I'm going to delete the color again, and we are going to do in. So basically, there is 3 zones in this object. So I'm selecting the folder. I do Control D and Control D. So I have 3 zones. So I would say like jacket, jacket like that. You see, shirt, and I don't know how to say this in English. Let's say call it stripe or scarf. Okay, so right now I have 3 zones, but there is no mask, so that's why you don't see anything. And I'm going to put some. I'm just going to select first the color. So let's say here I select the scarf. So I select the scarf. I go to the second one. Here for the shirt, so I select the shirt, and finally I go to the jacket and I do the same for the jacket. And here, as the color is the same, you don't see any difference. And you see the ID map is not perfect because there is some blank space. So what you could do for this is just create a fill layer that we're going to put at the base. And I'm going to put it black. It's just a hack, so it doesn't interfere too much with what you're doing. Okay, so now let's focus a bit of what is inside. So it means that for the scarf, for example, I'm going to delete this and that. Anything that is inside this group will be constrained to the scarf space. So what I'm going to do is to select the fill layer. So I could directly change everything here like that. I could say, you know what, it's too shiny maybe. So let's change the roughness to something like that. But you know, I'm lazy. So we have a bunch of material that we can use. And if I click on fabric, for example, by default, you see that it applies directly here. Of course, you say, okay, that's cool, but it's not the proper size. And I do agree with you, but you can go into the parameters and say, you know what, I want it to scale a bit more than that, so maybe like this. I don't like the rotation, so let's rotate it a bit. And you see, once again, it's real time. And once again, we are generating all the necessary texture to generate this material in real time. So that's something not to forget. And I don't like the color. I would like to put something like this. Maybe it's the trendy winter collection. And for this jacket, let's go to the jacket. So let's say I'm happy with this, and let's focus on the jacket from now. The jacket is here. So what I would like to do maybe for the jacket, I don't want this. I'm going to select this, is to put a leather on it, a nice leather, like a bit grungy, like it was. So I'm going to see if we have something. I can do leather. If I do this, you see that you have more. So I think I have rugged leather. Let's see that. We can, leather wear, leather stylized, leather fine. Let's say I'm okay with this one. This is not exactly like a material. It's what we call a smart material. You see, you have the two segments, the two categories here, and I'm going to show you the difference. So we say this one. So I'm just drag and drop here within the group. So let's say here. Did I put it well? First I have to activate the group. If not, you won't see anything. So at first you don't see any difference. You say, okay, it's like a material, but not exactly. The difference is actually the leather is something that you can, it's just a preset of layers that you have put within a group. So here I can open, and you see that there is inside a fill layer, you have another layers on top of that, and you can take something like that, that if you make, let's say, a material or a configuration that you like and you want to reuse, you can say, oh, okay, let's do right click, and you can do create smart materials, and on the smart material, it will recreate the elements, everything that is within your folders. So this is extremely useful because it means that you can do it once and reuse it on different parts. So let's continue. So I have this leather, but you see it's a bit uniform, you know, it's not the kind of leather I want because first, maybe the grain is too strong. So that's something you can play with. So I'm going to first go back within this group. I'm going to remove this. I don't need it anymore. And I'm going to play a bit with it. So first, I don't like the color. I want something darker. So that's something you can really easily change. And maybe I want to change also the scale because the grain is too big for me. So I am going to put something like that. Okay, I'm happy, but I would like to be like a really rugged leather, a bit used by the time. So what I'm going to do is to play a bit with that. I'm going to just duplicate this. So to do this, I can do Control D, for example. There is another way, like you can instance something like this, but it's a bit too advanced for today. And within this, what I'm going to do, so right now it's covering what is below this. We're going to see it directly. I'm going to put a really clear color like this one, maybe desaturated, something like that. And of course, that's not what I want. What I would like to do is to blend a bit according to the shape of the object. So as you can see, I already baked all the information textures. So it means that we can already use the smart mask. So I could use something like this, for example, here, and drag and drop here. So edge rust, let's see how it goes. Maybe that's fine, but what I could do as well is do it by hand. I can go here and say, you know what, I want to create a black mask. And on this black mask, we can do what we call a generator. So the generator will generate some content according to this. So let's see how it works. I'm going to go here. I'm going to create what we call a mask generator. And as you see by default, it's using kind of some information of the model. And we are going to change that a bit. So first, I can define what is used to define it. Let me see that. I'm just checking. It should be good. Okay. So what I would like to do first is to add some texture to make the effect a bit more grungy. So you see that here you have texture which is this one. Let's see. I'm going to check the balance of the. I don't know if I am on the good one. Okay, let me check that. Okay, yes, I am. Okay. So I'm going to add some more information. I'm going to use the ambient occlusion, but not in multiply. I'm going to maybe add sub, and I'm going to invert it. And let's see now how it works. I don't really like, so I'm going to put a grunge texture like something like this. I'm going to make sure that it's used within that. So far, I'm not really big fan of the effect. So I'm going to add a second texture as well, which will be something like that. And I'm just blending a bit. Okay, so that's closer to what I want. But I think the curvature is not used that much. So now, let's say I'm satisfied. I can invert everything, not satisfied. So I'm going to choose the global balance, like something like that. Contrast is too strong. And you can blur. And you can use many parameters to create your own mask like this. And while doing that, I'm not satisfied with the color. So I'm going to do something like that. So it allows me to create really easily some texture. Here there is some UVs distortion, but it's not really easy, man. But actually there's something we can compensate. If I go within my model, I can go here and I can change the projection. Here it's good. Let me check that. Actually, okay. I think it's good. Okay, so this is one of a way to do that, and maybe you want. The thing is, you can continue paint on this. Try texture set. Okay, no, I was looking at the same time at you too. So maybe you want to add some more effect on this, and it's not over, because if you want to paint, like let's say you want to add some rest, maybe you are going to do this. I'm just going to add something for the shirt to complete that. So for the shirt, we're going to stay really easy. What I'm going to do for the shirt, actually, I'm going to use what we call substance source. So I'm going to click here, and actually substance source is an online library that you can use with already made materials. And it's extremely handy. So here you see that I have this. I'm going to log in to that. You have to have an account. When you have a substance texturing suite subscription, you have 30 materials in every month which are given. So, okay, so you see that you have lots of stuff. I'm going to use that. Let's say let's type shirt. So it's extremely high quality materials, and let's say I'm going to use that. The thing is, it's a material which have parameters, which mean that it's not just a light blue shirt. It can be whatever color you want. That's something you can change. While it's downloading, I'm going to show you other stuff. Okay, can still work, yes. I'm going to focus on the pants. So for the pants, what I did is a bit the same principle. I took the jean fabric that you have here, which was like this. I'm going to show you like that. So by default, I had nothing, just the normal map that I imported. Then I took a fabric jean that I actually took within substance source. Then on this, I duplicated it. Actually, I instanced it to put it here, and I put a white, full white version. You can disable, I think you can disable the mask while doing shift click on the mask. So I did a light version of it, and with the mask activated, I blended. So the mask is like that by default. So I was just blending, and you see that it takes in account the shape of the object. So the blending is more occurring within the cavities and also within the legs, where actually I try to use the mask to make sure that all the parts are it's used at the right parts. So, and it gives you something like that. And on top of that, so you see right now I did it just for the jeans that we have here, and then I didn't make group, but I made a mask which is based once again on the color selection to isolate the metal here, and I did another one on this layer to make this, and finally I made some stuff that I painted on it by hand. So just to show you, there is different ways to paint. So of course you have the fill layer, the paint layer here, sorry, like this one. I'm going to move it here. I'm going to put a pink and I'm going to change the color later. So to do that, what I'm going to do instead is creating something like that I'm going to put on top. So it's a fill layer. I'm going to put it pink for now because I'm pretty sure you guys are in love with pink. Wow, awesome. That's the most beautiful gene in the world. And what I did, in order to work really easily, I'm going to put a black mask, and now I can paint on my mask to unhide that. And you have tons of brush to do that. So I can choose something like, maybe not this one, but like this one, for example. So you can imagine really painting the way you want. You also have some tools somewhere to make some stuff like stitches, zippers. Here it will change the color, but you see, you can really go deep. You have all the details of the brush and the way you do them. And I'm going to go back here. And so something like that. And one of the cool ones that is really specific to Substance Painter is the particle brush, which are brushes that take some physical elements in account. So instead of explaining during hours, I'm going to use this, for example, and if I do that, you will directly understand what it does. You see that it's really follow the geometry of the object to paint some strains on it. So in order to simulate leak, it's really good. You have some really cool one, like the rain one. For example, it's like simulating a rain on your object with everything. If I go closer, you see that it's subtly adding some stuff. Of course, you don't want pink, but the thing is I did it on a mask. So what I can do is going back to my material and change to get the way you want once you have done it. That's a good way to do because you see, okay, I'm satisfied to where there is some stuff, the elements are, and then you can be subtle. You can say right now what I'm going to do, I'm going to, so I'm closing that to change the color, to put something maybe darker like this one. I'm happy with the color, and I want, maybe it's oily, so I want to push a bit the roughness to make it more shiny. It will be subtle because it's just a little bit, but it will be there. You can even say, you know what, I don't want the base color to be too much visible. So for each channel within your layer, you can choose the blending mode and also the opacity. So for example, here on the base color, I'm going to move that a bit down, so it's really subtle. So you can go really far with that. So finally, I'm going to focus now on the shoes. So same thing, I won't do it by hand right now because we don't have a lot of time, but here is how it goes. So you have something like that. And if I show you layers by layers, at the beginning, I had that, which was fine. But I say, okay, you know what? I want to isolate a bit the element. You know what? We are going to do it anyway. So I started with that, and I say it's cool, but because I like that, I did not want to do it by hand. But let's add another layer, a fill layer, like that. I'm going to put it in a group, Control G, sorry. And this fill layer, I'm going first to add a mask with color selection once again, and I'm going to pick a color for this. And now here I can choose the color that I want. So you have a lot of control. That's super cool for that. And you can change also the roughness. And do something like this. And you can go even further. You can say, okay, I'm going to add maybe another material on it. So another fill layer. And with this fill layer, I'm going to add, let's say, like gold, because everyone likes gold. It's like pink or gold. So I'm just removing this, and I'm going to click on that. So, wow, it's goldy, of course. So can maybe some people would like that, but that's not what I want. What I want to do now, oops, sorry, is to filter this a bit. So I'm going to use a mask, because you see, I can even mask within a group. There is no problem with that. So add a bitmap mask I'm going to use. And do I have, maybe, let's see the patterns. No, not bitmap, sorry. Add black mask. And I think within the black mask, I can choose the grayscale value. So I'm going to Let me check that. I'm not sure at all. Fill layer. I think I can add fill like this. And I'm going to find a pattern that I like let's see what I have. Something like that, for example. Okay, cool. So that works well. And I will change a bit the UV scale. So really easily, I can make something like this that I really like. I can think about doing the same I can create a new group, for example. What is it? I'm going to put it out. Oops, where is my group? Here. Okay. Once again, mask with color selection, pick color. I'm going to pick this blue because maybe I want this to be another color. And so my group is here. The good habit, of course, is to rename properly all the layers, of course. But here as well, we don't have a lot of time. So new fill layer that I put within this group. And I'm going to put it in gold again, maybe. But this time I want like green gold, because why not? And you see that it changes really easily all the stuff. So you can go and continue this way. Maybe I would like to make some use a bit everything on it. So to put some dirt because it's too clean for me. So I'm going to add a fill layer here that I will put like to the color of dirt, like something like that. It's not that shiny, of course, so we change the roughness and make it rough like that. And I'm going to put a mask, a smart mask that I have here. And I'm going to use what we call the ground dirt, which is able to take the position from top to bottom, as you can see here. So you have way more ground dirt here compared to here. And you can play a bit. It's not something which is fixed. So I can go here and say, okay, I want to define the level of that. You still have the control at any point. And let's say that's what I want. So you see it's extremely fast. I did it in less than half an hour. So that's something that you can play with for a long time. Finally, when you have the whole model, what you can do to export that, you just go to File, Export Textures. And you leave all this stuff checked. You choose the position here and you just click export. I don't do it now. Actually I could, but it will override the one I did before. But basically what it will give you is something like that. Resource. It's a bit export SPP, and it will give you all the maps that we have here. And once you have done that, you just have to replug within within a Sinespace, and it should work. So that's it for the demo. I hope it has been clear and it has been helpful. If you have any questions, that's the right time, so don't hesitate. I don't know.
All right, thank you. So we're going to take the next part of this step. I'm going to take over, and I've got a version that I texted myself that I've just got open in the background. And we're just going to go through the real basics of how to get this actually into Sinespace and getting it looking good. So thank you, Vincent. We do actually have a whole bunch of questions, both in the YouTube chat, and we've got a whole bunch coming from the in-world environment as well. So we might try and get through those at the end. If everyone who does actually waiting on a question, please put it again in the chat just so I can see it easily, because it's there's been quite a bit of chat in the in-world discussion that's kind of got lost. However, let me just, I'm just going to swap over to my computer and we can get started on the next steps. So this is one that I made myself. This is exactly the same setup. In fact, the version that we've got, this is all good to go. So we'll actually be releasing the substance files here that are already set up. So thank you very much, Vincent, for making those. So we'll just post those on the blog later as part of the competition. And we'll get to the competition in a second. But just to begin with, we'll just show you how you actually get this exported. So this one is, as I said, one that I made myself. You can actually see that I'm already wearing it right now. We have all the various fancy metallic bits behaving the way the fancy metallic bits should be behaving. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to export this one. Now the export process for Sinespace is the same as for Unity. So you just go export textures. And we'll just grab, I do have a project open that I've just made myself now. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm just going to make a new folder. call this one Vlad Competition. And just while I do that, I might talk a little bit about the competition as well in a second. So I'm just going to export it to this folder. We're going to use the Unity 5 configuration. So when you actually do the file export textures, we have a whole bunch of configurations that we can pick from. The one you want to pick is Unity Standard Metallic. That's the one that'll work the best. There's one thing here that I will suggest changing, and that is the padding. In Sinespace, we do quite a lot of work on texture compression, and areas that are flat colors, that is to say that they're all the same, that aren't part of the UV map, those will get compressed out automatically as part of our packing process. So if you use texture dilation, that's sort of a way of expanding the pixels out. It actually can break the compression, and you'll get file sizes that are bigger than they need to be. So just something to consider is just to dilation diffusion and set the dilation to 16 pixels. That's plenty. You could even go less if you want to, but for now we'll just export that. Now while that exports, I'm going to drop into to Unity, and I've actually got the outfit now. I've only just set this up, so this is a new blank editor project. Substance Banner might still be exporting, so we might just wait for this to finish before we go straight into Unity. So this is a completely blank project, so we'll just show you some of the very basics. The only thing I've done is I've actually just logged into the editor pack, that's it. So we'll just show the very basic process of uploading the clothing items. Now all these templates and assets for our competition, which I'll talk about now. So Allegorithmic have been incredibly kind and donated 3 subscriptions to... fantastic, that's what I've done now. 3 fantastic subscriptions to the Substance Suite, the Indie Substance Suite, for a whole year to people who design the best outfits using these template models that we're supplying. We're backing it up. You get a year-long subscription of our standard 5 plan, which is the highest we've got. We're giving that out to each winner as well, so there'll be 3 winners available. The competition will run until mid-January. The full details are on our blog, and we'll be posting the source models there in about 30 minutes or so, so you'll be able to get started straight away. We are really looking for original creations. You're free to use the full Substance set of tools and resources. You can use those in your contributions. However, we do want you to ideally do some original contribution here, so please try and add as much original elements to your design as possible. We're looking for creative, for interesting, out there. I mean, it's up to you what you want to submit. All you need to do to submit is just create 3 to 6 still images of your fully textured model, and we need the object actually uploaded so we can have a good look at it. So I'll show you through the upload process now. This is really straightforward. If you've used the Sinespace editing pack before, you'll be very familiar with everything that I'm about to go through, but I'm just going to do a little bit of a beginner's tutorial on how to actually upload content, particularly clothing items. And we'll just do one clothing item and then we'll move on. You can do the same for the rest of them. So the first thing you need to do is you just need to go to, after you've imported the project pack that we supply, just go to the space menu, click Upload Settings, and just enter your username and password. I have done that already, so in this case I am good to go. I have got the textures that I've just exported, and they are all nice in here. So you can see we've got the albedo, the metallic, all these good bits. And Digvijay, my wonderful assistant, has provided me with copies of the models. So I'm just going to grab the models wherever they are hiding, and this is going to take a second because I know they're in here. Unless it was uploaded as a pattern. In which case I may be short-circuited. 1 second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go even one step further. We're going to go to the forum because we have got the models there available. So if you go to the Sinespace forums, to the Substance Painter Challenge thread, you can download the model packs here. And they have been... Hang on. Just go over here. This is always where we get the fun. And Digvijay, just to let you know, that link is 404ing. Here we go. So we have the model pack now. I'm just, while I wait for this one to quickly download, the process for actually importing the models, the materials, we'll get to those in a second, but basically what we need to do is we need to set these up in a cube just while we wait for these models to download. I'm just going to create a new material we'll do the jacket first. So in this case, we'll just go create a material in Unity. We're going to use the standard shader for this one, so we're just going to call this jacket. and we're going to make sure the shader is set to standard. There are other shaders available. You can upload your own custom shaders and things with your content in Space. That's all relatively straightforward. However, the basic material that we're going to be using here is just the standard one, all good to go. Now, we have the jacket. To get this to look right, we'll just find the jacket. It's in here somewhere. Outfit jacket, there we go. So we have a whole bunch of textures. Now, I mentioned before we had there was no lighting information baked in. You can see that here in this jacket that I've made. While there is shadows and so forth sort of on the object that are coming, they're all coming in through the occlusion maps and other sorts. The plain albedo texture is just a single color. There's no lighting information baked into it. We can look here, for instance, this is the metallic, so this is showing the bits that I've made that are shiny and metal, and then we've got normal maps and all sorts of other bits and pieces available. In this case, we're just going to drag and drop the jacket normal into the normal map slot. We'll drop the color into the albedo, and finally we'll just grab the metals and smoothness. Now, hope these models have grabbed themselves down. Almost there, 2 minutes. So one thing we can look at here is just as we bring this out in Unity, you'll notice that we're actually able to see those same sort of reflections and changes, particularly if you've got lights available. So there's a few things that will contribute to how the lighting looks on a model in Unity. The big case is the window lighting window. We've covered this before, but effectively the global skybox, for example, is where a lot of the lighting contributions that can come from all the base reflections. But getting this to go is going to be pretty straightforward. We're just going to grab these models, 33 seconds left to go. Now, the editor pack for Sinespace, if you've got any familiarity with Unity, it's really straightforward. It's what you see is what you get for uploading into our environments. If you are not familiar with Unity, that is to say you're coming from an earlier virtual world, the tools look scary, they're not in practice. Actually getting to go is pretty straightforward, and we've got a whole bunch of video tutorials on YouTube available. Those videos are all free to watch and should get you going from basic to an advanced user fairly quickly. And on top of that, we've got our forums, our user groups, anything else. So if you are entering this competition and you don't come from Sinespace originally, just let us know, because we have a fantastic community support, and we also provide a lot of dedicated support ourselves. All of our staff spend a rather large portion of our weeks making sure that we can help out creators getting started with the toolchain and how to go. So here we go. We're just importing the items now. So these are the FBX models that came. The reason they're called the Vlad outfit is actually it was modeled by a fantastic artist called Vlad Andropov. He's a Unity creator. I think he actually comes from a game art background, but we got him to produce these models for us at the end of last year, and we've been using them over a few things in the past. We were talking about tessellation, a few things earlier in the year. Now we're just going to use the standard shader here, not tessellation shaders. The reason for that is there's a slightly different lighting model on the tessellation shaders, and that lighting model is not going to look one-to-one the same with Substance Painter. So just be aware when you are playing around with shaders that shaders will impact quite considerably on how lighting will affect a model, how it'll look. And we are good to go, I think. Almost good to go. So it's that painful 1 second left at the end of the progress bar that you just sit waiting. Come on, come on, come on. With the... There we go. So we have got the Gorilla one. Here we go. So I just need to find X. Alright, so I just need to find where this asset came. Here we go, imported assets. Okay, so we've got our item here. So you can see here we've got our... now this one has come in together. So I think this is all one piece. We might just need to split some of these parts apart. As you can see here, I've actually just imported our 2015 models. We've got our 2017 models just about to come out, and they're much higher poly count than the 2015 models. But as you can see here, we've got the jackets and all those bits and pieces. So I'm just going to grab this jacket off here. I'm going to copy it. It's already actually skinned and set up, so we should be able to actually upload this one directly, I think. I'll get DigVijay just to confirm this one afterwards. We'll do an edited upload if I'm wrong here, but this should be a pretty straightforward process. I think. Actually, we have the prefabs. Oh, we do actually have the separate prefabs. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, this is all set up and good to go. So here we go. This is our jacket prefab. I'm just going to do one small fix to this one. If you see here that the bounds on the model is slightly wrong, we've actually got a button in our clothing item settings just to recalculate the bounds. Okay, so this one's got our material on it. So let's grab our material, which is there. Let's put the jacket on here. Now it looks like we've got something odd here, and that's because the normal map is not correctly set. So if we go down to the here, you'll see that this texture is not marked as a normal map. Just click the Fix Now button, and that will there we go. So we now have the Vlad outfit. With the metal, you can as you see the metal is that I painted into here is coming through here, and if we rotate the light around the scene, so we'll see a little bit of how this stuff is reflected. Okay, so we've got that, and I'm just going to grab here. You can see sort of a bit of information about the model where it's occluding the base skeleton. Grab this one. I've added there's a clothing item settings component already attached to this one, so you actually don't need to do any work here on the uploads. The only thing you need to do is just set up the virtual grid. So we're just going to call this one, this is my Vlad Electro Masterclass, and we'll call it a shiny jacket. Okay, and other than that, I'm just going to mark it not for sale. Other than that, this should be good to go. We'll set this one to SWE for Sine Wave Entertainment. You guys do have to fill in that information just for copyright reasons, that if we get a dispute or whatever, we like to be able to look up actually who has the rights to a particular item. Otherwise, this item is ready to go. We just drag it into the project folder to make it a prefab. Click the Upload tab, and fingers crossed, there we go. So this is actually just packaging all the data and sending it to our servers. It'll take a second to upload, so I've got an 18 meg upload ahead of me here. And once you have done that, what you'll find is that the object looks like this. So this one, the ambient occlusion of the scene might be a little bit rich, but as we walk around, the object will actually respond correctly. We've got appropriate reflections coming off the metallic areas where they are. I've painted metallic areas all over it, so for instance these pink highlights are actually shiny, as if you've painted a sort of metallic decal over the top. And we can take this into other scenes. If I go to my assembly scene, for example, the lighting in there is a bit different to how it is here in the Welcome Center. The Welcome Center has lots of reflections of trees and things like that attached to it. The assembly, on the other hand, has more of a sort of orangey environment. So we'll just give it a second to hop over into the scene. And just while we do this, the content is almost uploaded. And as soon as it's uploaded, our processing service will throw it through, and it actually should be in my inventory in the next sort of 10 minutes or so. A second to load in. Now, as you can see in here, we've got sort of different lighting conditions where there's more of a deserty look. In that respect, you're seeing that the metallic bits on the clothing are actually reflecting more of those than they are otherwise. So you can actually see some of these illuminated areas are actually baked into our reflections. So you can see that they actually are kind of showing up in the fleur-de-lis. Okay, so that's the basics of how you get it up. We have this competition. It's going to be running from now through to mid-January. There are 3 fantastic prize packs. The prize packs are worth over $1,100 US each, so they really are a great set of prizes. If you've ever been interested in getting into Substance, there is a 30-day trial available. You can use that for creating your entries. If you have any problems with getting entries or getting set up with Substance Paint or anything else, we're around to help you, and I'm sure that Allegorithmic support is fantastic as well. In fact, I know that the support is fantastic.
It is.
Yes, so we would like to do everything we can to sort of help you make an entry. We will be judging and announcing the winners around the middle of January. Vincent, I think you've volunteered to at least help look over some of our entries. We'll be putting our own thoughts as well, we're really looking forward to seeing what people create and what they upload. I think that using Substance, it's so much easier. This is an unbiased opinion coming from myself. I have been doing game texturing for, I don't know, 15 years or so. I hate working in Photoshop texturing things. It is such a pain. Using Substance is such a breath of fresh air. It is easier, it's faster. And this whole outfit that I've got on right now, I did this retexture, I think it maybe took me 25 minutes. If you think about the old workflows that you had to work through, I couldn't even imagine doing this in less than a week. The level of detail that you can just quickly mash out with here. Sort of my favourite way of building in here is just using lots of masks. So I use masks and everything, just fill layers and masks. everywhere, and you can just layer so many bits and pieces together so quickly and get fantastic results. So this is something that I highly recommend, and it's not terribly expensive. It's far cheaper than Photoshop. So it's not only a better tool, you don't even need to use Photoshop anymore. It's a one-stop shop for getting great textures and things, and then you take them into a PBR world like Sinespace, you can really make your objects shine. So I'm going to wrap things up there. I'd like to thank Vincent very much for coming on board. I have sort of a closing slides. Vincent's Twitter handle is CGVinny. Mine, everyone who's watching this probably already knows. And finally, the details for the competition, they are up on blog.sine.space. They are up now. We'll be posting the template items now as well. So the next sort of couple of minutes, we'll put those up and I'll let everyone know. Finally, if you want to get Substance Painter, go to Allegorithmic.com. URL is on screen now. If you are new to Sinespace, the link is there as well. It's just sine.space. And then that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. And we really look forward to seeing what people create.
Thanks a lot.
Fantastic.
Do you know if we have questions on the forum? I think I answered on YouTube. I don't know if there is some on Sinespace.
Sorry, we actually have a ton of questions, but let me just go through and see what we've got here. We've got quite a few questions on the competition. We'll clarify those rules. Is there any recommendations on file sizing for exports from Substance Painter? This is a good question. For good-looking clothing in Sinespace, I would recommend going at least 2048 pixels. You can do that pretty safely. One of the things you can do with content when you're creating it in Sinespace, we actually recognize the texture resolutions that you indicate per platform. So if I grab this one, for instance, the albedo here, this one here is currently set to 2048. That's what I exported it at. What you can do is you can tab to the other platforms. So for instance, I can go to here for iOS, we would set the texture resolution down to 256. Now automatically we will reduce texture sizes for certain platforms. For WebGL we will export at 256. For mobile we will also export at 256. Those limits are actually enforced by the systems. You can override them potentially, you can indicate higher. Be aware though that our content reviewers will flag content that is unnecessarily bulky on certain platforms, and that's specifically to do with things like memory limitations. So just as a broad overview, mobile clients, we really have very small amounts of memory to play with, so if your clothing item is eating up a big chunk of that, then you're going to get a frowny face from our content team. Okay, next question. We have can you export at 2 different resolutions? Yes, you can. You can do that, but again, it may be easier just to simply override inside Unity. You can just select the max size here, and our content processors will actually respect these values. So you can indicate what kind of compression and things you're using. There is details of this on the Sinespace wiki, but we can go through those again. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask our developer groups.
Just a question which is about expired trials.
Yes.
I'm just asking now to see if it's visible or not.
Okay, fantastic. So yes, I guess we can relay any messages back as well. If someone has something that needs a longer reply from you guys, I'm happy to put you guys in contact with anyone from our community that needs help from you. Yes, okay, well I think I'm probably going to wrap things up there, but if you do need any further questions or things, I'm happy to relay across questions for everyone. And thank you again very much for coming on as a guest speaker. You are our first guest on these masterclasses, and it looks like we've had actually a great number of people turning up actually. We've got more than we usually do. So thank you everyone who's come along. It's been a great little tour of Substance Painter, and I hope that everyone, even if you're familiar with Substance, I am familiar with Substance, and I learned new things today. So it's always great sort of seeing those new tips and tricks and exactly how to work a little bit more efficiently. Fantastic. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks again.
And I'll close it off here.